Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we help multicultural incoming freshman women and men manage their entire college experience throughout post-graduation to successfully transition into entrepreneurship and corporate workspaces as new hires.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I finally figured it out. I'm back to me. So when you think you have nothing, back to me. I go back to me. Yeah, I'm back to me.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Yoli Tamu. Learning to separate your feelings from your responses is a skill worth mastering. This week, as we wrap up the final episode of our third annual Divine Nine series, How Sororities and Fraternities Support Mental Health Awareness, we are joined by Rasheed Prescott, social worker at Conservation Corps in Long Beach, California, and Gamma Gamma Omega chapter member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. Rasheed shares how he helps young adults develop transferable skills for employment while encouraging them to lean in and embrace the suck of life that will inevitably come. Find out how he maintains his mental health and encourages his clients to remember that they are not their mistakes. Enjoy. How you doing, Rasheed?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm so good. Thank you for joining us as we close out our Divine Nine series this year.
Thanks for having me.
So cool, so cool. And Demarie, your fellow brother, introduced us, so I'm so grateful to him as well. Very cool. Okay, so now I love to just get to know you a little bit before we jump into our conversation. And I think it's really great when I meet Black men that are in the mental health space. So thank you for being there. Let's start there, right? There's such a need for it. So you are a social worker. So now what or who inspired you to even get into the mental health profession?
To be honest, I didn't know mental health existed. Coming from the inner city, I'm from Watts, California. It's a little sub-city in Los Angeles. You know, to make it simple and plain, I was recently fired from 2 jobs. I had a really good friend that worked in a group home. Initially, I wanted to be in law enforcement. I wanted to be a parole agent, right? So I get fired from these 2 jobs. I was recently engaged, and mom used to always tell me as a kid, you know, no one wants to be with somebody that can't keep a job. I just knew that I needed a job, right? I reach out to a really good friend who coincidentally turns out, fast forward, my line brother, right? Gets me an opportunity. Again, I didn't know anything about the mental health space. I didn't know anything about group homes. And I started there and I immediately felt this feeling of like purpose, right? This feeling of like, this is where you belong. Although this wasn't my journey. So I like to say it found me. I didn't necessarily find mental health. It found me.
Wow, that's powerful. And that you received it. You accepted the call, you know?
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So, wow. So I love how your honesty, like, you know, you lost employment, you know, you weren't looking for it. And this was an opportunity that found you. That's pretty powerful. So now when you and I were talking about your upbringing from Watts in the inner city, you were telling me how you pretty much understood the pressures of youth and that, you know, not knowing much at a young age, you wanted to make a point of sharing your experience with young people. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I don't know. Again, I'm very interested in law enforcement and the criminal justice system, but I also knew at a very early age that, you know, my biggest fear in life was probably going to be going to jail, right? So that alone was a mitigating factor, right, to being compliant or following directions or not allowing my peers to kind of manipulate me and my behaviors. And so that's pretty much what it consisted of. My mom was a little rough around the edges. And again, just full transparency, there's not a sober male in my family, right? So the standard of excellence, it's kind of blurred, to be honest. I saw a lot of excellent women in my life, but I didn't see a lot of, you know, strong men that were walking the right path. And through that, I just knew that I did not want to go to jail, Yoli. I didn't know a whole lot at that age, but I knew that that wasn't for me.
Wow. Very powerful. So it's a personal connection that kept you here. It's keeping you here.
100%. Right. And obviously the prayers of my grandma and my mom and all that good stuff. I'll never say it's all me. But again, just at an early age, I was able to look at a situation. Right. Here's an example. I was the kind of kid, you know, a lot of us are the type of children that if you see something going wrong, you're like, OK, it just happened to them. Right. That won't happen to me. So I follow that same path. Right. Oh, now it happened to both of us. I was smart enough at an early age to know that if Yoli got hit by a car for jaywalking, I'm no different than Yoli, right? So I'm not jaywalking. And that's pretty much how I kind of just navigated my life, and it served me well.
It's that saying of, I can tell you what not to do. Right? It's that saying. I love it. So now you got this new position at the Conservation Corps of Long Beach. Can you tell us about it and what your role will be? Or do you know exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a social worker there. And so some of my responsibilities consist of helping young people, right, transitional youth, so about 16 to about 26, identify and develop transferable skills for employment, right? So they may not know how to build a resume. They might not even know what a resume is, right? They might not know the importance of time management or communication, written and oral, right? So I facilitate these different groups or workshops to assist them with being a desirable employee, right? And then the other side of it, that's just the employment component, right? The other side is just, checking in with them, making sure that, their mental health is good, talking about challenges, difficulties, maybe finding resources for them, right? I just lost my job. I don't have any family. My girlfriend is pregnant. We're both 18. I need therapy. I need help, right? I don't have any friends. I don't have any money. What can I do?
Right.
So a lot of what I do with that, just, okay, I hear you. Let's figure out some resources. Let me contact other social workers in the area. Let me get on the net and see, what they're offering in Long Beach. I was recently telling a young person about he was struggling, he was homeless, but I found this program in Long Beach that pretty much you can't stay the night, but they provide free laundry, they'll feed you, they'll give you resources, and they'll help you find housing. Obviously, you got to work the program. It's not something you just walk into say, I want a house and you get it, right? But it's just, it's really powerful, Yoli, and where I'm from, it's not that we don't know how to accomplish and how to succeed, but a lot of it is we don't know the resources. We don't know the directions. We just know we want to be successful. We're never taught like, okay, this is what success looks like. And so my goal is, to do what I can to make them, to allow them to be as successful as they would like to be.
I mean, that was my very thought as you were speaking. I'm like, how does a person find you? How would they even know to go to a conservation corps? How did they get to you? What was that process?
So for me, I applied for the job, come to find out, make a long conversation short, I had a relationship with the hiring manager, right? So the relationship itself got me the opportunity, but my resume got me the job. My experience got me the job.
Right. But the client itself, how does the client find you? Like you said, this 18-year-old in need, how does that person find you?
So the Conservation Corps, a lot of these young people, they're involved in the Corps already, right? And so
Okay.
what the Corps does, aside from the things that I've already explained, they develop work skills as well, but it's tangible work skills. So they might work with Caltrans for 6 months, right? They might work at one of your local parks, right? We're restoring plants and managing the weeds and all that good stuff, right? Maybe recycling and stuff like that. So it's easy to find when you're looking for it. I think that's the big thing, right? If you're looking for it and you need resources, you know what questions to ask, and whether it be through your clinical team, or whether it be some form of group home or social worker or case manager, right? People don't wake up with a case manager. Usually they've been in some form of system for a while.
Because this is so good to hear because, on this podcast, we focus on college students transitioning into a new environment and then even the college graduate heading out into the workforce. So to hear that you deal with transitioning as well into the workforce is great to hear because that listener may not be going to college. This may be another avenue for them to go into the job force. So I'm glad that you exist, for preparation for them into the workforce.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Yoli. And just, I think we're moving towards a time where college is important, but I think we're recognizing that college isn't for everyone, and that doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. So I think that's the biggest component or the biggest takeaway that I really enjoy about the work that I do. Yeah, of course, go to college, right? But again, everybody doesn't have the mental capacity. Everybody doesn't have the support or the means to go to college. And, I just want people to know that just because you choose not to go to college, or like me, where you go to college, you take a lengthy break, and you come back to it, take another lengthy break, right? Success looks different for different people.
Absolutely. So good to hear. So now with all that you do and the way that, you pour into others, because in this work, that's what we do. We pour into people, we got to take care of ourselves. So here we are at the Divine Nine series talking about mental health awareness. And I'd love to know what your plan is and how do you take care of yourself to have enough energy to be there for people?
Absolutely. I think that's important. I think that's one of the most important things we can do, right? Is prioritize ourselves. But it depends on the day, Yoli. I'm doing it all. I learned a few years ago and not that long ago, a few years ago, that my job, the people that I work, that I serve, they got the best version of me. And when I got home, I realized I'm tired mentally, physically. And who got the worst of me, right? My family. So that wasn't cool for me, right? So I just need to be active, right? Lately, I've been playing a lot of golf, and playing golf might be just going to the range and hitting, 120 golf balls. Coming home, pressing. I do a lot of walking, right? My wife is like, "You're always outside. Well, it's fresh air out there. I need to move. I'm not cooped up in the house." So it just depends. And everything, when it comes to like my self care, my mental health, it's not always about spending money. People think that, oh, I don't have any money, so I can't do anything for myself. That's not true. And that's mentally, that's a tough place to be, because then you start to kind of identify your happiness and associate it with money. And that's difficult.
Wow. You're the first man to say, hey, I exercise by going to play golf. Okay. That's how I do it. That's how I release. That's so cool. That's absolutely a great release. And all that walking that you're doing out there. Absolutely. So now, when we also spoke, you talked about how you maintain a short memory, which I thought was powerful. Like, you don't hold on to things. Can you expand on that? What you meant by short memory?
Absolutely. Again, just prioritizing my mental health, right? So if I'm holding on to these different things, it's going to affect me, right? I am very in tune emotionally with myself. So therefore, when things don't go quite right, I'm going to ruminate on those thoughts, right? And now I'm waking up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm beating my alarm, right? I don't have an appetite, right? So just making sure that I'm prioritizing myself through this stuff, because if I'm not, I'm no good to nobody.
hmm And I mean, it's just important to say that you have to have a short memory, because that's a skill that you can use in your personal life, with relationships in general, to just kind of let things go and move forward. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
To hear that's a practice, it's important, very important.
It really came to play working with the young people that I work with, right? Oftentimes we're disrespected by our young people, right? Whether it be a derogatory term, whatever, however you feel that you might be disrespected. And I learned from a guy that trained me when I first started in the field in 2007. I watched him the day before I started. He was punched in the face by a kid, right? The kid was a bigger kid, probably about 6'2", 215 pounds, punched him in the face, busted his mouth, right? So the next day I start, we walk by this kid's office or his room, and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" The kid kind of goes off on him again, says some things to him. And I'm like, it's day one for me, right? Day two, same thing. Day three, we go by the kid's room again, and I kind of stop him and say, I don't think you should say nothing to him today, right? I've been at this job for 3 days. Is Rasheed, I go home at night. I have a family. I'm going to go on vacation next week, right? So for me to hold on to these different things that these young people are doing to me because they're in a group home and they don't have any family, how insensitive would that be for me, right? And I was young, I was dumb, and I was immature at the time, Yoli. So it didn't make any sense. But fast forward, it's like it 100% makes sense. As a staff member, I have everything that I need and that I desire to function. Why would I get mad at this kid because he's in a group home and he hasn't spoken to his mom in months and he's been sexually abused? Of course he's going to be a little angry. Of course he doesn't talk. Of course he's going to feel betrayed, right? So just it's less about me in the short memory and more about just giving them an opportunity to heal and to understand that I want them to know that they're not their mistakes.
Oh, wow.
I want them to know that they're not their mistakes. Yeah, you punched me. Yeah, you spit on me. I don't like it, right? It's disrespectful, but I also know you're dealing with more trauma than a lot of my peers, and we're adults, and you're 15, 16 years old.
My goodness. So good. So good. I mean, when you think about the trauma of young people, the compassion that you have to have, that's what it sounds like. You have a lot of compassion and even empathy is what I'm hearing for young people. So that's fantastic. And you said the age range is what? What is the age range that you work with?
So currently, it's Tay youth, so transitional age youth, so 16 to about 26.
Okay, okay. Which is a very pivotal time, very much so. Okay, so now as a fraternity brother, we're here, and I always like to ask all of you, how has being a member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, how has it served you in your life thus far?
In every aspect. I started a business with my line brother. My daughter's godfather is a frat brother. Some of my best mentors are frat brothers. Just conversation, in the fraternity. My brothers, they're not afraid to say, "Hey, you're full of crap today," right? That don't sound right, right? But they're also not afraid to say, like, "Hey, I haven't heard from you. What's going on? How's mom doing? How's grandma doing?" Right? So I think those spaces are really important. And in those spaces with my fraternity brothers, I can show up as my whole self. I can show up as a professional, right? And have, really deep professional conversation, or I can show up in my darkest hours with tears and my shirt ripped all up and they're like, "Man, what's going on?" But it doesn't matter. I know they're going to be there, right? But as far as the fraternal aspect, I will also say, regardless of your affiliation or your desires, you will get out of it what you put in. So if you do nothing, you might not reap any benefits and you might think you wasted your time, right? But if you really lean into the brotherhood or the sisterhood or the fold, you are going to get what you're looking for, right? But also, we're dealing with people, right? So don't think that just because it's a fraternal organization that we don't have our ebbs and flows of emotions and disagreements, right? Because you have them with your siblings. So it's no different.
Very good to say. So I'm just thinking when we talked about compassion a few minutes ago, do you feel like your sense of compassion and empathy has been reinforced as a fraternity brother, or was it already there before you joined?
Say reinforced, I will say it's been affirmed, right? It wasn't anything that I ever lost sight of, but it's something that I'm often reminded of.
Because the reason I ask is because there's so many empowerment programs for women out here, you know. And of course, yes, we have the great sororities, but the programming outside of the Greek organizations are usually for women. So to hear that men within your organization are there for each other, it's just also important to hear these words coming from you about compassion and being there for one another as men and being vulnerable. That's important conversation.
100%, right? Especially when we come from environments, right? I don't want to speak for everyone, but I come from an environment where those things are non existing. I come from an environment where men aren't hugging men, right? Where men aren't saying, "Bro, I love you," right? And so for that to be my norm now, it's this awkward duality. When I go back to where I'm from and hang out with people I grew up with, I can see the emotional growth in myself, right? But that doesn't mean I crap on them, right? Then now the conversation is more about like, "Hey man, like how are you really feeling?" Well, I'm good, bro. I'm fine. Well, I know you're not fine because I know you and your girl aren't together. I know grandma just got diagnosed with diabetes. So I know you're not fine. So let's talk about you not being fine instead of, parading around as if like, "Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm a man. I can handle it." That's problematic for me because I know what comes of those thoughts, right? When you think you got it.
Right, right, right. You don't want anybody to know that you don't know.
For sure.
That's a scary thing.
Yeah, it is.
I always wrap up with final words of encouragement. And I mean, you have been encouraging throughout. I mean, just your story and just just from the very beginning, you said, "Hey, I'm in a new situation." You know what I mean? And you're just taking on the challenges of life as we speak. So as we wrap up, I wanted to know for that young listener that's in transition, do you have words of advice for that person that is in transition into a new environment, whatever that may be it college, or be it, pursuing a job in the workforce?
100%. Two things. The first thing is what I like to talk to people about is emotions, right? People think that just because you feel a certain way, you have to respond accordingly, right? So allow yourself to feel, but don't allow your feelings or emotions to dictate the outcome, right? So basically, what I'm saying is, "Oh, I'm anxious today," right? Cool. I understand that, Yoli. You're anxious, but I still need you to wash those dishes, right? You're depressed. Today's not the greatest day. I'm feeling down, but I still need you to go to school, right? So just embrace the funk, right? Lean into the suck. It's not going to be beautiful all the time. Just embrace it and work through it. And lastly, fail, but fail forward, right? I believe it was the great Nipsey Hussle that talked about, a loss isn't a loss is a lesson, right? So as long as you're learning in these difficult times and you're able to apply it and it not happen twice, I think that you'll be okay, right? And get with a mentor, talk to people, right? I think culturally, Yoli, we have been conditioned to, "Oh, don't talk to nobody, right? Don't tell nobody what you're going through, right? Handle it internally." But if I've never written a book and I have a desire to write a book, but I'm not courageous enough to reach out and ask for help, then how am I going to write a book if I don't know how to write a book, right? So lean on the people in your world, lean on the people in your space. If they don't know, then ask if they can point you in the right direction, right? Don't be afraid to ask for help. I know I'm leaving a lot out at this point, but I just want our young people to know that you are not a result of your incomplete task, right? If you didn't school, you're not a failure, right? It just wasn't your time. If you got fired from 2 jobs like me, right? It doesn't mean you're not hireable. It just means that emotionally we have some growing to do and professionally we have some growing to do, right? So as long as you guys are learning from it, I think that you guys will do great things.
Man, you're saying it all. I mean, I was grabbing on to a few things you said, and I heard you say it before. Embrace the suck of it all, or lean into the suck of it all. Everything sucks. You know,
It's
lean
inevitable.
into it. How do you lean into that? What does that look like?
Oof. So part of it is separating the emotion from the feeling, right? I don't like talking to my supervisor. I don't think she has my best interest. Is that going to dictate your level of professionalism that you bring? Is that going to dictate the quality of your deliverables? For some, it might, right? Because the relationship is now affecting the product, right? But if we're truly professionals, if we're truly embracing the suck, I'm going to figure out how to get you on my good side so that in the future, I can know how to work with somebody professionally that I don't care for and that I know that doesn't care for me, right? But what do we do, Yoli? I don't like that person, so I avoid him. I don't want to talk to him. There's no growth in that.
No.
If we only spoke to the people that we liked, how do we grow? How do we develop? How do we gain a different perspective, right? How do we advance? And it creates this unrealistic expectation of life. And then that creates a whole nother line of problems and challenges.
Mm-hmm. I just think that phrase is just right on point, for young people. Embrace the suck of it all because it sucks, And when you think about young people, at least in my experience, they're so headstrong, as we were as well when we were their age, but so headstrong and have so many great qualities. So I love the fact that you're saying be professional in that moment. What does professionalism look like so that they can shine and people can see the quality as opposed to the emotion? Because when you're a young person, you just want people to feel what you're feeling, and it's not always about what you're feeling.
It's not always about you as a person too, right?
Right.
I had to learn that as well.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. Well, this has been great. I'm so grateful to have you. And man, what a way to wrap up our Divine Nine series. So now if they want to reach out to you, where would you like to send people? To your IG or maybe your LinkedIn? Where would you like to go?
Both. You can find me on LinkedIn, Rasheed Prescott, Rasheed, Prescott, Prescott. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm also a photographer, so I will give you guys my photography Instagram. It's creative.imagery. Creative is spelled phonetically. So KRIETIV.imagery. IMAGERY. All right. Creative.imagery.
All right. Fantastic. Well, you enjoy your summer.
I do have a baby due in August, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, congratulations. My goodness. Congratulations. Well, hey, new chapters for you, new blessings. I wish you the best.
Thank you. And I just want to say one more thing before we part. Shout out to the house, Morehouse College.
Morehouse man. That's right. Love it.
Not quite a Morehouse man, but I'm a man of Morehouse.
Okay. A man of Morehouse. Got it. All right. Is there a difference? What is the difference?
So the difference is men of Morehouse are current students. A Morehouse is a graduate.
Wow. Got it. Got that. Love it. Okay. Well, it has been a pleasure. And I thank you so much for your time. And I'll be in touch with you very soon.
I appreciate you, Yoli. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. When challenges come, consider developing a short memory, and you too will go farther in this life than you might have imagined. For more information about other episodes, remember to subscribe to the Back to Me podcast, College and Beyond. I'm your host, Yoli Tamu. Leave a review at the end of this podcast, and if you would like to learn more about other special events, join the Back to Me podcast Facebook group, or simply text Back to Me to 833-206-4565. Until next time, be well.
Back to